So this one is making some noise. There's some drama with this part of the big Kevin Feige interview. It's all about Jonathan Majors. And interesting couple of bits here. Okay, so I want to break down what's in the article, and then I want to give you some context because this is not exactly what happened. However, a lot of people out there are saying Kevin Feige is lying. Like I saw Bo DeMeo like have this whole big take, and it's just like, look, I understand where Bo's coming from, but he's wrong. If Bo was right, I would get out here and I would say he's right. Okay, I'm so fair. I just got to tell you the truth. And the truth is like Bo is misunderstanding what happened. And a lot of you guys are misunderstanding what happened too, okay? So let me explain it. Marvel faced several curveballs in the last few years as it worked on its post-Endgame phases. Yes, there were real-world issues of the pandemic and Hollywood strikes. There was the tragic loss of Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman. And there was an assault conviction of Jonathan Majors, the actor that was playing the villain Kang, seemed to tee up as the next big arch nemesis for years to come. Feige never mentioned Majors by name, instead calling him Kang Actor, and at one point, the actor, or just zeroing on Kang as the character. And Feige said Marvel was already preparing to pivot away from Kang before Majors' issue. Now, that's actually really important. He didn't even say dude's name in the article, but let's keep going, and I'll explain what's up. We had started, even before what had happened to the actor happened, we had started to realize that Kang wasn't big enough, wasn't Thanos, and that there was only one character that could be that, because he was that in the comics for decades and decades, said Feige. Because of the Fox acquisition, we finally had it, and it was Doctor Doom. So we had started talking about Doctor Doom even before we officially pivoted from Kang. And in fact, I had started talking with Robert about his audition idea before Ant-Man 3 even came out. It was the long plan that we had to take one of our greatest characters and utilize one of our greatest actors. Okay, so obviously this is wild. I'm sure you have some questions, and I want to explain what was going on because this is real, but it's also a half truth. Okay, so let me explain it. The reality is this: we know that this is true. The Russos recently revealed that over 2 years ago they had a meeting with Kevin Feige about Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. This was before Quantumania even came out. Okay? Now, here's the reality of the situation. I know this for a fact because I do this job. I am chronically online. I am watching and reading everything, and I'm trying to do my best to digest it and figure it out. And I know for sure because there was a huge ass delay in that trial, and there was this huge ass lingering time period where we did not know exactly how Marvel was going to respond. And there's actually a third version of how this all went down that everybody's avoiding, but this is what it is. Basically, Marvel had already decided that they wanted to pivot into something larger, bigger, and more mass appeal for the Secret Wars movie. Okay? They had already started to talk about Evil Iron Man bringing Tony back, Tony replacing, quote, air quotes, Kang. Okay? Here's the difference, though, and this is what Feige's not revealing. This is what Bo DeMeo's not admitting. This is actually the piece that explains it all. There was a version of this which was not going to be as harsh. There was a version of this where Kang was still going to be involved in Kang Dynasty and in Secret Wars. There was a version of this where they still bring in Doom, but Majors is not convicted, and Majors still is there and plays this huge part in how it's all going to happen. Now, the reason we know that is because the character that Majors originally played, He Who Remains, right? That is going to end up being central to the motivation of Doctor Doom. There was an original version where Doctor Doom was going to pop up in Secret Wars. This was revealed by Alex Perez, by the way. There was an original version where Doom was going to pop up in Secret Wars because Doom had realized that he and the X-Men and several other Marvel concepts were kept out of the sacred timeline by He Who Remains. Remember, He Who Remains, played by Jonathan Majors, was the guy that created the 616. He creates the sacred timeline. He removes Doctor Doom from the timeline. He removes the X-Men from the timeline. This was all going to pop off in Secret Wars. And remember when Jeff Snyder said years ago that his source told him that Doctor Doom was always going to be the villain of Secret Wars, not a villain, the villain of Secret Wars. It is very likely that Doom was going to come in Secret Wars, take over for Kang, become the real threat, everybody bands together, stops him, resets the universe, and then Doom was also going to persist as a villain in the next saga. Okay? So, there was a version that they were cooking up, and it was years in the making. This version would have allowed Kang to continue to exist, and then, boom, there would be a flip, Doom would come in. I know for a fact that's what it was, okay? However, here's what happened. Majors got convicted. To be honest with you, I heard it actually surprised Disney. From what I heard, Disney actually thought he was not going to be convicted. Once he was, company line, Disney bullshit steps in. They don't even mention the dude's name. So obviously, after the conviction, things change even more. And you got to remember, like, we were covering all of this. We were covering this. We were covering how they're changing the script for the Kang Dynasty. They're changing it. They're changing it. Oh my God, they're changing it again. Like, don't you remember? I remember because it's my job. So there's this version Marvel was trying to cook where they're pivoting while also letting Majors do his thing. And then Majors gets convicted, and from the tippity top of Disney, they're like, oh, hell nah, pivot, avoid, don't even say dude's name. And I think if you're just a reasonable person, like, that's what it is. It makes the most sense. That's obviously what happened. And all of these people that are getting really butthurt or pretending it's false, fake, or it didn't happen, like, you're just not understanding. You're not paying attention to all of the little bits. You didn't follow through the whole thing. And now you're just listening to what this person is characterizing or what this person is saying. Like, no. Like, I don't know what else to say other than just to say, I have been here following it every step of the way. This is my best understanding of what it is. This understanding, by the way, has evolved. You know what I mean? Because when the Doom thing happened, remember, the only person in the world that had that teased it, was Jeff Snyder. And I couldn't believe that shit was real. Now, within the last 6 months, we had an interview with the Russos. They said 2+ years ago, Feige pitched them on this idea. Do you think they're lying? What incentive do they have to lie? It doesn't make any sense. Of course that's real. Of course it's real. Now, you could feel how you feel about it. You could feel that Majors was done dirty. That's fine. I think, honestly, he was done a little dirty. But I also understand Disney's position. Like, they're just not going to do that. They're just not going to have somebody that's convicted of whatever he was convicted of. I think it was like, second assault, second degree assault or some shit like that. Like the version of assault without intent to assault, whatever it was, right? They're literally just not going to make the big leader, marquee villain, that guy. So, at this point, when this happens, they're already doing Doom. They already have all this shit rolling. And they then adjust it. Okay, so at this point, right, Majors gets in trouble. They're like, we got to pivot hard. That's when you get the change to Loki Season 2, which had already kind of been caked in, because, again, they were already pivoting, right? I don't know if you're going to get a recast Kang. There's some debate about that. You might. There's some people saying that you might, and they might be in Doomsday. At the same time, it might be totally done. Like, I think He Who Remains will be referenced for sure. The Kangs will be referenced. I think you almost have to. But what Marvel decided to do was take this thing they wanted to save for Secret Wars, and now they make it the marquee for Doomsday and for Secret Wars. So, of course, there's massive changes. And, of course, they do pivot from him being, like, the Secret Wars surprise to the draw to the whole two-part thing. That's obviously a big change. Okay? And I'm not saying they didn't change. But this way that people are characterizing this, where, like, oh, this is not true. They were rocking with Kang, and it was on and on till the break of dawn, and then the conviction happened, and they threw it all out. Not true. I can prove that it's not true. I can prove it. I have the receipts. Marvel was already pivoting away. They accelerated the pivot after the conviction. That's it.